he's not allowed to uproot an object from Rishis Yachid and bring it to Rishis Rabban and vice versa. And in discussion of this malacha, which is called Eitzah, so the Gemara in Shabbos and Avav brings out a brisa that tells us that there are 4 rishuyos for Shabbos. What does it mean? It means that there's 4 different types of areas. Rishus means an area that has a certain halacha to it. When it comes to the halacha of Eitzah, and they have different ramifications when it comes to if I'm allowed to take it from this area to a different area, I'm not allowed to take it. The Gemara says there's 4 rishuyos, and the names are Rishus Yachid, which means an area that has walls around it. Or Rishus Rabban, for argument's sake, right now we'll just describe as an area that has 600,000 people walking through it. Then there's a Carmelis. A Carmelis is an area that's somewhere between Rishus Yachid and Rishus Rabban. It doesn't have walls, but it also doesn't have the criteria of Rishus Rabban, let's say the 600,000 people. And this area, Midrabanan, we give it the halacha of Rishus Rabban for the point of our share. And then there's something called a Makom Patur. A Makom Patur is like a no man's land. It's an area that's smaller than 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim, and that area Chazal look at as it's not a significant area. So that area doesn't have any halacha. It's like empty. It's no man's land. And you're allowed to carry from or Rishus Yachid around that, and you're also allowed to carry from Rishus Rabban and put it onto that area. So when the Gemara tells us an example of Rishus Yachid, so like a lot of Gemaras, the Gemara says an interesting case. And one of the cases, the Gemara gives 2 cases. One of the cases the Gemara gives is together, and for the point of our shir, we'll call it an amud, which means that there's a post, a pillar, in the Rishus Rabban. This pillar is 10 tefachim high, and on top it's 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim. So what's these numbers? The point is that in order to have a mechitza, to create a Rishus Yachid, in order to have a wall that gives you, you have to have a wall. You said Rishus Yachid is an area that's surrounded by walls. What's the height of the wall that you need in order to be considered Rishus Yachid? So the Gemara tells us it is 10 tefachim. And we know the area that's chashiv to be considered a rishus, that it's significant. We said it has to be 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim. That's why if it's less, it's a Makom Patur. So if I have this post that's 10 tefachim high, and the area on top is 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim, which is a significant area, so the top is Rishus Yachid. So the question's obvious. I mean, why is Rishus Yachid? Where's the walls? So there's a Rashi. Rashi in the Avav of Beis in Shabbos tells us so there's a concept called Godasik. So what does Godasik mean? So the Gemara in a couple places in eruvin and Sukkah tells us that there's a halacha Moshe Yisina, that if you have a wall, a kosher wall, that means a 10 tefachim structure that's going to block the Rishus Rabban, so the wall stops at 10 tefachim. But there's a halacha Moshe Yisina that we pull up a virtual wall, and we see virtually as if the wall extends all the way up and keeps on going. So Zok Rashi, if I have this post in Rishus Rabban, and the post has 4 sides to it. The 4 sides are 10 tefachim high. It's the shear of a mechitza. So I have 4 mechitzas around the post. So the halacha, L'Moshe Yisina of Good Asik, tells us that you virtually pull the wall up on all 4 sides. And now the top of this post is surrounded by 4 virtual walls. And it constitutes a Rishus Yachid. There's a Gemara in eruvin, the Gemara tells us there's a criteria to say this halacha of Godasik, of pulling up a virtual wall. What's the criteria? The criteria is that the mechitza that you want to pull up has to be nicker. It has to be that you could see it. And Rashi explains over there, when you have this case of an amud, when I'm standing on top of the amud, if I look by my feet, if I look down, I could see the face of the amud going down. The face of the pillar going down on all 4 sides. So therefore, these mechitzas are considered nicker. They're considered that I could see them. And if they consider that I could see them, so I could say the halacha of Godasik and pull up the walls and make my Rishus Yachid around this post. So we should have a discussion based on this. If a person has a roof, a regular roof on the top of his house. So what's the halacha about his roof? What are the 4 rishus? So we discussed what rishus does your roof get? What type of rishus is it? So the Rosh tells us, if you have a roof that has no lip, meaning we know most roofs, if you have a flat roof, usually, at least in America, there's no lip, it's just flush. And if you have more like the roofs we're used to, that the roofs are on a slant, so usually the roof protrudes over the walls of the house. So Rosh says that if I would have a roof the roof does not protrude over the walls, that means when I'm standing on the roof, it's equivalent to the case of a pillar that I can look down and see the walls of the house, I would say Gerasik, and the roof would be a Shesayachid. However, if the roof protrudes even a little bit beyond the wall, so then the wall is not seen, you can't see the wall, you can't say Gerasik, so what do I have? I have an area that has no walls, bigger than 4 by 4, so it's not a Makom B'Torah, it's not a no man's land, so the halacha is that it's a karmelos. And the halacha is that it's a karmelos, it gets this true to say versus the rabbi, you can't take from your house onto the roof. So that's pretty simple. The fun comes in is Taisus. Taisus says it's very similar to the Rosh, but he says something very interesting. Taisus says, I'll just read 2 lines of the Taisus, he says, anytime you have the gag, a person who has a gag, a roof, that the roof protrudes over the wall, Hagag Aser, the roof is Aser, Ki Kol Hagag, the whole entire roof, Nifratz B'milulei L'karmelis. Literal translation means it's breached completely to a karmelis, which we'll explain that in a minute. Meaning, that lip that protruded beyond the wall, beyond, extends past the house, into the Shesaradim, that blita, that lip, that little protrusion, is a karmelis, and because the words of Taisus were, your roof is breached to the karmelis, your roof is also. What does this mean? So there's another halacha that if I have a Rishus HaYachid, let's say that Rishus HaYachid, for argument's sake, has enough walls to have the halacha of Rishus HaYachid. But there's a significant breach in the walls between the Rishus HaYachid and another Rishus, let's say karmelis or Rishus HaRabim. So the karmelis and the Rishus HaRabim is an area that in Shabbos is also to go from Rishus HaYachid to that area. And if my Rishus HaYachid is breached, with a significant breach to that area, the Rishus HaYachid becomes Aser and it gets the halacha of the karmelis. So Taisus is telling us that the roof itself, technically Taisus doesn't see why there should be any issue with the roof. He's happy with the roof being a Rishus HaYachid. But he's saying the lip that protrudes beyond the wall of the house, and it goes out toward the Rishus HaRabim, that lip has the halacha of a karmelis, and because your house, the roof of your house, has no wall between it and the lip, so it's breached to the karmelis, so your whole entire roof becomes a karmelis also. The Magen Avraham says that there's enough given a halacha between the Rosh and the Taisus. According to the Rosh is saying very simple. In order for me to make my roof a Rishus HaYachid, I have to have walls. How do I have to have walls? Through the halacha of Gerasik, pulling up the virtual walls. In order to have Gerasik, they have to be nicker, I have to be able to see them. So if the lip protrudes even a tiny bit, even a tefach, it makes it that I can't see the wall. I can't see the wall, so that I don't say Gerasik, I don't pull up the wall, and my roof has no walls, it's a karmelis. However, the way Taisus is saying it, that the reason why the roof is a karmelis is because it's breached to a karmelis, the lip protruding out as a karmelis. So in order to have the status of a karmelis, it has to have 4 by 4. The lip would have to have 4 by 4. Because we said anything that's less than 4 by 4 is insignificant, and it's a Makom B'Torah. So if the lip was less than 4 by 4, so let's say it protrudes only 3 tefachim, it would have the halacha of a Makom B'Torah, and my roof would still be Rishus HaYachid. That's what the Magen Avraham says in Taisus. So now, the kasha is obvious. Why in the first place is the roof a Rishus HaYachid? We said that the Gemara tells us that the basic criteria of Rishus HaYachid is an area that has 4 walls. If the lip is protruding, I don't say Gerasik, I can't pull up a wall, so there's no walls to the roof. So why is the roof Rishus HaYachid? Why is Taisus saying that the reason why the roof is Aser is because it's breached to the karmelis, because the lip is a karmelis? It's much simpler, even if it doesn't have a halacha, even if the lip doesn't have the halacha of a karmelis, so it's less than 4 by 4. Even if it's a Makom B'Torah, I don't care, there's no walls, I can't see the walls. The lip is covering the wall, I can't see the wall, and the roof should be a karmelis. So the Magen Avraham over there says he has a right to the Taisus to say that the roof itself, without the lip being 4 by 4, the roof itself will have the halacha of Rishus HaYachid. And what does the Magen Avraham say? He says, I have a right from the case we discussed, the post in Rishus HaRabim. I have the Gemara said I have a post in Rishus HaRabim that's 4 by 4, 10 tefachim. That case, the post is Rishus HaYachid. So Mamela, your roof also is Rishus HaYachid, if not for the fact that it is reached to the lip, which is a karmelis. That's what he says. So, fact the Machzah Shepah, I don't understand what you're saying. They have nothing to do with each other. The post in the Rishus HaRabim, like Rashi said, there's nothing going over the side of the post. When you're standing on the post, you look down, you can see the sides of the post. The Mechit is on the cars, you can say Gerasik. So, of course, the post is Rishus HaYachid. However, by the gag, by the roof, when the roof is protruding even a little bit, I can't see the side, the walls. I don't say Gerasik. How in the world could the Magen Avram bring proof that, to tell me that the gag itself, the roof itself, is just a yachid from the case of Amud, the case of the post? So the agenda of the Shia is going to try to answer this question, to explain the Magen Avram. So there's another Gemara. There's a Gemara in Sukkah. The Gemara in Sukkah tells us on the Talmud and the base. We know the first mission in Sukkah tells us that the criteria of a Sukkah is that the schach has to be 20. It can't be higher than 20 amos. The schach from the ground of the Sukkah can't be higher than 20 amos. So the Gemara has a case. What happens if you have a Sukkah? The Sukkah is higher than 20 amos. Let's say our argument. Say it's 21 amos. The schach is 21 amos tall. So the Sukkah is possible. A guy goes and he builds inside the Sukkah, in the middle of the Sukkah, a post that's big enough to be a Sukkah, for argument's sake, whatever the 7 by 7, a little more, and the post is 10 tefachim high. So what's the halacha now? Could I say that on top of the post, from on top of the post to the schach is not 20 tefachim, 20 amas? Could I say that now on top of the post there's a kasher of Sukkah? And without getting into the complications, the Gemara is talking about a case where you can't use the side walls of the Sukkah. For those who are learning Sukkah, the Gemara says it's more than 4 amos away, you can't say Gerasik, whatever the complications are. In this case, I cannot use the walls of the Sukkah. So I have a post inside a Sukkah. Basically, for argument's sake, I have a post, and somehow on top of it I have schach hanging there, floating there, less than 20 amos above the post. Do I have a kasher Sukkah? So the Gemara brings down. Abai says, yeah, you have a kasher Sukkah. Why? Because you know there's a rule. Say Gerasik. Pull up the walls of the Amud, of this post. I have walls around my Sukkah, I have 4 walls, I have a floor, I have a schach development. Then the Gemara says, brings down from Rav. The Rav says no. Over there, the mechitzas, the walls, are not nikkur. They're not apparent. So, he's up there, the Rav is telling us that by post, you can't see the mechitzas. You can't see Gerasik. So in the middle of the Sukkah is possible. So the question is very simple. I mean, Rashi told us, the Gemara and Shabbos tells us, that a post is Rosh Hashanah. Rashi told us, why is a post Rosh Hashanah? Because you say Gerasik. And really the Gemara even told us to say Gerasik. The rule is you have to be able to see the walls. And Rashi himself says in Avon, you could see the walls on a post. You look down by your feet, you see the walls. So what is the Gemara in Sukkah telling us? The Rav is telling us in Sukkah that when you have a post inside a Sukkah, you can't make mechitzas through Gerasik because it's not nikkur, you can't see it. You could see it. It's steer in the Gemara. It's Rosh Hashanah, that means you can see it. So the Ran and the Ritzvah say, to answer for Rashi Shita, that by Sukkah there's a special halacha. Sukkah needs super walls. Sukkah is, we know Sukkah, whoever in Sukkah, there's walls are very important. We learn Sukkah, that there's a special halacha. You have to have really good walls. So the Rishonim say that the walls of Gerasik, even though they're halachic walls, that they're not real walls that you could live inside, they're not walls for dira. So you can't use Gerasik walls for Sukkah. Meaning Gerasik walls means that you have no wall at all. If you have 10 tefachim of wall, you can use Gerasik. But in the case where you don't see any wall, there's nothing to live inside, you can't use those walls for Sukkah. So it's very Mishmak and Shittas Rashi. But there's another Shita that had to explain the Gemara in Sukkah. There's a Ramban in Shabbos inside the Tesla base. The Ramban's Shita is that an Amid is a Shisa Yachad Nakas of the Halacha of Gerasik. The Ramban doesn't explain exactly why it is Rosh Hashanah, but the Ramban has a halach nafkamina, a halach difference between him and Shittas Rashi. Rashi says that an Amud, a post of Rosh Hashanah, is Rosh Hashanah through Gerasik, you pull up the walls. And according to that Rashi, the whole ear space from the floor of the post all the way up to Shemayim is going to be Rosh Hashanah because there's mechitzas going all the way up through the concept of Gerasik. The Ramban is clear in Shabbos that the Amud, the post, only the actual floor is Rosh Hashanah, but the ear space on top of the Amud, on top of the post, is not Rosh Hashanah ear space. It has a different halacha. And it's apparent from the Ramban that the Ramban is not saying that the reason why the post is Rosh Hashanah is through the concept of Gerasik. He's not using Gerasik. Where did the Ramban come from to say that a post is not Gerasik? So they came from the Gemara in Sukkah, because the Gemara in Sukkah told us, the Rabbah told us, that a post by a Sukkah is, you don't see Gerasik. It's not Nikkur. You can't see it. Meaning the Rishonim are saying, the Ramban understands, just because I can look over and I can see the wall and I look over, that doesn't make it Nikkur. It doesn't make it the criteria that you can see, it's apparent. So he understands that when I have a post, I do not say Gerasik. And the male and sukkah is possible. And in Shabbos, why is there Rishus Yachid? So the reason, the basic understanding to explain why Lefini Ramban is Rishus Yachid and what the argument between Ramban and Rashi, why Rashi says you need a Seger Asik to make the post Rishus Yachid and the Ramban doesn't, is they're having a fundamental argument of what the mechitzas that create Rishus Yachid are doing. Rashi's understanding that he says it very clearly in Shabbos that the walls that create Rishus Yachid have to be makif, they have to surround the Rishus. They have to come up and hug the Rishus, and they hug in the Rishus, and through that, the area within the walls that's being protected by the walls becomes a Rishus Yachid. The Ramban's understanding, clearly, they do not have to have the walls surrounding and hugging the Rishus. As long as there's walls below the Rishus, which is holding back the Rishus Rabbim gets stopped by these walls. So there's walls to this Rishus that are pushing away the Rishus Rabbim and saying, Ad Khan, don't come anymore. That's good enough to make the area beyond it Rishus Yachid. But the area that's Rishus Yachid doesn't have to be actually mukaf, doesn't have to be surrounded by the walls. So according to Rashi, that you have to actually surround the area with walls in order to make it Rishus Yachid. Rashi is forced to understand that this is done through the concept of garasik, to pull the walls and surround the area. Rashi is forced to say that a post has garasik, it's considered that I could see it. And then you have to explain that by sukkah it's different. Because by sukkah you need better walls. Masha'enkin, however, according to the Ramban is saying that the walls don't need to actually surround the area. As long as the walls stop the Rishus Rabbim from coming here, they push away the Rabbim, the area beyond it is considered that it has walls to that area, protecting it. So then I don't need to say that by a post that the walls come up through Garasik and hug the area. So I could say that a post like the Gemara and Sukkah simply says is not Nicker, you can't see it, and you don't say Garasik. So according to the Ramban, the Magen Avraham is very understood. Because a post does not have Garasik. And if a post does not have Garasik, and it's still Rishus Yachid, that tells me if I have walls holding back the Rishus Rabbim, that's good enough to make the top Rishus Yachid. So when you have a house, and you have the lip of the roof going over the walls are holding it back to the Bnei Rishus Rabbim. Bnei Rishus Rabbim can't get beyond these walls. So any area beyond these walls is considered an area with a mechitza, with a wall. So the roof itself, even without the concept of Garasik, will become Rishus Yachid. And the only reason why there's an issue is because it's preached to the Rishus Rabbim, to the lip which is the comments. Within the next 2 minutes, and we'll try to throw something out quickly, is that this is very nice in the Ramban, but without getting into details, Taisus himself at Shabbos clearly argues on the Ramban. And Taisus is clear that he understands that the airspace on top of the Amud, on top of the pillar, is a Rishus Yachid, which would tell us simply that Taisus has to understand there is a concept of walls coming up and surrounding this area. So it sounds like Taisus holds like Rashi. So if Taisus holds like Rashi, back to square one. If you need to say Garasik, pull up the walls, if the roof is covering the wall, you can't see Garasik, why is the roof Rishus Yachid? So I want to just throw out a basic hakira to tell them how to explain what does it mean Garasik? What does it mean you pull a virtual wall? When you have a wall, there's 2 parts to every wall. There's the actual physical stones and the bricks and the mortar, the wall itself, and then there's a concept that the wall is trying to give you. The concept is to differentiate between these 2 places. To hug one area, to protect one area, and to differentiate. When I'm pulling up the wall, when I'm virtually pulling up this wall, is it that I virtually see that I'm actually putting up more bricks, I'm building up the wall, I'm taking the actual physical wall and continuing going up? Or is it pshat that the concept that the wall is giving me continues? The wall gave me the concept that these 2 areas are a split, and I could virtually see that concept continuing, and I have that concept as it goes up. Chaim Brisker famously says that the concept of good asik is pulling up the physical wall. And pulling up the conceptual wall, the concept of the split, is not good asik. And it comes out, according to what he's saying, is that you do not need to have mechitzas, walls that you could see, in order to continue the concept that the wall is splitting into 2 areas. That concept could continue without it being seen, because that's not the halach of garasik. So it comes out that the roof of a house, even when the roof protrudes over the wall, and they don't say garasik, the roof itself still has a concept of the walls underneath it, that this concept is telling me that this area is cordoned off and this area is Rishus Yachid. But there's a massive difference in the two understandings of garasik. If I only pull up the concept of this mechitza is telling me to split between the 2 areas below, and I don't actually build new wall, so the concept that I pull up is only the concept that I have. What was the walls giving me? The walls where they were giving me a concept to split between the area on one side of it and the area on the other side of it. And I could utilize that concept as I go up. What was that concept? The concept was a splitting away from Rosh Hashanah. So I'm virtually pulling up that concept, and the concept continues. The concept continues up and surrounds the roof. That the roof has a concept that it has a gather, it has a makif, it has a mechitza. The concept of the mechitza pushing it away from Rosh Hashanah. It has a mechitza that's surrounding it and hugging it. That's telling you that it's removed from Rosh Hashanah. That's the concept that it can build. But it can't build a new concept onto itself in that area, a new concept of splitting. In order to create new splitting, you have to have a new wall. The issue that the Gag has today is that the Gag is parts in its place, in a new place, however high it is, 20 feet up. There's a new area of issue. That now this roof is breached to the lip of the roof next to it. In order to use a kayak to split it off of that lip, you would have to create a new concept of splitting. The concept downstairs is a concept of splitting it off from the Shusar Avenue. That concept won't help me, even if I pull that concept up, it won't split the roof itself off the protrusion. So even though the roof itself is a Rishus Yachid, because it has a concept that is split off of the Rishus Avenue, but it doesn't have a new concept of splitting onto itself to split it off its new issue that now it's open to the caramels right next to it. So Mamela, Zok Taisis, if the lip itself is 4 tvachim, then the roof itself is a karmelos, because the roof is open to karmelos. But the roof itself, otherwise, if you're Shus Yachid, it's less than 4 tvachim, because the roof itself has, hugging onto itself, the concept of the mechitzas downstairs going up that Ruchan calls goodness. Sure.